The problem with trying to pound a square peg into a round hole isn't just that the peg doesn't fit, it's that you actually destroy the peg while you're doing it. And when we're focusing on how do we change this person to fit them into this environment, we have to recognize that we're sometimes doing damage by doing that. It may end up with an endpoint that makes us more comfortable, but at what cost to the other person? Pretty much anywhere that children on the autism spectrum go, we go with them. And what I've seen over the years is that it's often hard for kids to be part of the events or the activities, the things that are happening in different places in the community, just because things aren't always set up to provide a safe space for them. And it isn't that people don't want them there, and it isn't that people don't want to be inclusive and to provide what the kids need, they just don't know how. The reality is you are your children's first advocate, and so the more you know about how to foster inclusion in those settings, the more than you can then serve as an educator for your child's daycare or, at church or at the library or wherever you're going. A lot of times I get called in, or any kind of direct treatment provider gets called in because there's a problem, because there's behaviors, because there's a child that's not being integrated with the rest of the kids. And so if we can give them that training up front, then that allows them to minimize those kind of problems.
I used to have some children that would come in, and it was very difficult to cut their hair. They were, what I thought at that time was scared. They weren't scared. There was times where I would have to ask the parents to please step away from the child and kind of just let the kid in the room and let me cut their hair. There was times where I had children where parents were holding them down for me to cut their hair. And when I was contacted by Sandy from Misericordia, I thought this was a great opportunity to provide our students, as well as myself, with the education to know better how to deal with these circumstances that we're going to encounter. And the more, there is more that we're seeing, and it's hard. I don't want students to have to go through what I went through being the cosmetologist, because it gave me where I didn't want to cut children's hair because you were struggling.
Any child that's in distress, and I keep saying child, but honestly this is adults too. We have situations where an autistic adult is at work and is struggling, or is in the community, is having a challenging behavior of some kind in a store or in a community location, and at that point police get called. It isn't just parents, teachers, frustrated. It becomes a real safety issue for a lot of people.
I mean, in the midst of, you have 8 or 9 kids running around, and this one's doing that, and I have to stop myself and say, okay, all right, now this one, let them go ahead. They want to be over there piling something up or spinning something around or just shaking. As long as they're safe, I can just, not let it get to me. So yes, and you forget, and your own flesh, your own personal biases or whatever, the way you want things to be in order.
When we see behaviors, it's really easy as caretakers or parents to just want to hone in on that behavior versus making a connection with the child and really seeing what is it that you need? What is happening for you in this moment?
They're in a summer camp where, every day at a specific time, the child has a behavior. They're, yelling, they're throwing themselves on the floor, they're trying to run out of the room. And for weeks, we tried everything. I had people collecting data. Tell me what's going on that is affecting this behavior. How do we help this child not be in distress? I walked in and, sat in the corner and watched and realized that there's a grocery store, like a convenience store across the street from the YMCA, and every day at a certain time, the delivery trucks would come. So then I started having them say, every day at this time, every day when this happens, tell me if that sound is happening. And it turned out that it was. And so they started shutting the door 10 minutes, 5 minutes before the trucks would show up. Behavior stopped. And so it's one of those things where when we look so specifically at the child as the issue, how we would have never figured out why he was so upset unless we pulled the frame back and looked at the whole environment of what was happening.
I'm a grandmother now, so I'm not around the little ones anymore. I raised 4 children, and I worked in pediatrics as well for a time and so forth. But it's so good to be reminded that, we're all unique. And those who are more unique than others, shall we say, you can appreciate their perspective, and that maybe their screaming and yelling is a cry for help, or maybe they're frightened, or maybe they just can't control.
To be able to see that growth and to see that person who might have struggled with, the way I was asking them to reframe everything they thought about child development and education and what is best for a child, come to a later training with a completely different mindset and a mindset of, okay, now tell me what to do. I'm on board. I've changed the way I think about this. Now give me the specifics. Give me the practical things that I can do.
I have to say the students were so engaged. When you're teaching 10th, 11th, and 12th graders from all over, it's very hard to hold their attention for 2.5 hours per day. This was a day where they just sat there and listened and nodded their head that they knew what was being taught.
We're all unique. We all react to our environment in a unique way, even though there's a lot of sameness about humans. But still, we are all beautifully individual. And it really did help broaden my thinking again to say, not everybody thinks like me, or not everybody responds the way I do or the way I think they should.
I went into the training thinking it was going to be just a lot of maybe scientific type information, but I found it to be really hands-on. There was a lot of information that I found just to be helpful in raising any child. Just the way to be nurturing, to look at triggers, to help the child, in an environment where they can feel secure and open up and feel safe and be included with all the children.
But it was a pleasant surprise to find out it really was very specific and very, you guys were terrific at giving us a lot of knowledge, especially recent knowledge of the care of children with spectrum disorders. And
I'm not going to tell you how to change them. I'm going to tell you how to change the environment. I'm going to tell you how to change what you're bringing to the environment and how you're approaching the situation so that everyone is included. It isn't just here's a whole, we're going to fit this person into it. It's a lot of just being humble and giving each other grace in every situation, not just, oh, we're the neurotypical people and we're going to give, grace to the neurodiverse people who can't fit into our world. But we actually need to give it to each other all the time.
Your training was excellent. I would give you 10s for everything. From beginning to end, you were all very professional, very knowledgeable. And as a matter of fact, I went through it twice because I thought, I want to reiterate, I want to not forget.